Former President Donald Trump has picked up a major Wall Street endorsement. Blackstone CEO Steve Schwarzman tells Axios he has decided to back Trump as a vote for change, despite previously calling for the Republican Party to look for a, quote, new generation of leaders. What do you think of that?
Well, it is change. I mean, you have...
It's true.
Steve Schwarzman.
Change the country.
Steve Schwarzman, now in support of a candidate who said he was going to be a dictator. We have Steve Schwarzman now saying that he supports, that guy right there, supports a candidate who says that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs should be executed for treason. There's a guy right there who says that many people that he knows, CEOs of media companies, should be charged and convicted of treason if they're ever critical of Donald Trump, if their networks are ever critical of Donald Trump.
So I guess
that's a guy who actually, Steve Schwarzman is endorsing a guy that has argued in court that he can execute his political opponents and use SEAL Team 6 to execute his political opponents and not be charged of that crime. Immunity. He says he would have immunity as president of the United States if he executed his political opponents. We could go on and on all day. A guy who said he wanted to terminate the Constitution, going to have basically build concentration camps for illegal immigrants, and guy who says Kim Jong-un,
violent, profanity-laced threats. Yeah, I mean,
a guy who says that Kim Jong-un is a great leader. Love letters. So that's his choice, Steve Schwarzman. Great job. Good luck.
So let's bring in the co-anchor of CNBC's Squawk Boss, Andrew Ross Sorkin. He's also a columnist for the New York Times. I guess Steve Schwarzman cares about other things.
This is a big deal. It's a big deal because he's probably the most powerful person on Wall Street. Blackstone not only controls about $1 trillion of money under management, including pension funds from all over the country and the world, but through its portfolio of companies, it acquires and buys businesses. It is actually one of the largest employers in the country. Now, interestingly, within Blackstone, there's a unique divide, which is to say that Steve Schwarzman, who runs the company, is the co-founder of that firm, is on the Trump side now, and I want to go back to where he was just several years ago. And Jonathan Gray, who works right under him, is on the very other side, who's a very outspoken Biden supporter. So it's sort of very interesting bedfellows inside that office place, and maybe you could call it even bipartisan in some way. But at the same time, I think it's worth just noting, you know, you go back to 2020, this is even before the January 6th attacks. And, you know, Schwarzman was supporting Trump almost to the end. Even after the election was over, he was still with Trump. And it only came from a lot of pressure for him to effectively step away from Trump. And it wasn't a full condemnation of any sort. It was just, we're going to look for new things. Then again, in 2022, he said that he wasn't going to support Trump. In fact, what he said was, I'm going to look for new candidates. And so here we are, and I think what's happening, and I think this is true of a lot of folks on Wall Street, two things are happening. One is they're looking at the polls and they're saying who's going to win, and they want to be on the side of winners. And that may sound either not hypocritical, but just power, brazen, whatever. Craven might be the word.
Cynical, craven,
cynical, craven,
weak, pathetic.
So there's
all those
there
words
is that.
Fit here.
There is that, and then they are doing it either under the cover or because they genuinely believe. And I believe that there's a lot of folks who genuinely believe that Trump will be better on Israel than Biden, but not necessarily for Jewish people. I mean, I think that's a very separate, kind of complicated issue, which is to say there's a lot of folks on Wall Street that are saying, well, because of what's happening in Israel, I want to actually go with Trump now. But then they're not really looking at some of the domestic issues here in the United States as it comes to discrimination and the likes against Jewish people. So it's a very complicated dance, but that's the dance that we're seeing. Craven is the word. Joe, you got it.
Craven is the word. It really shouldn't make that complicated either on Jews when you have Donald Trump saying that you can't be a good Jew if you don't support him. When you have Donald Trump actually not taking a firm stand on some of the issues that right now are bedeviling Joe Biden when it comes to Gaza and the end of that war. I want to go to Claire McCaskill really quickly. Claire, the thing that is so fascinating about, and we've talked about this a good bit on this show and talked about it with Andrew, with a lot of these people who think, oh, well, I'm going to do this because it's going to make me more money. And the BS, I almost used another word, but just the BS that Joe Biden's a, quote, socialist. No, Dow's over 40,000. Lowest jobless rate over time since the 1960s. I could go on and on and on and on. This economy, the strongest economy in the world, the dollar, the generational highs, all the things that if Donald Trump were doing it, he'd be crowing about it every day. And you'd have people like Schwartzman going on saying how great he is for the economy. But with Biden, no. And instead, this guy wants to support, and a lot of Wall Streeters want to support a guy that has promised to be dictator on day one.
Yeah, and you know, our economy, like you say, you would think they would look after their self-interest here in terms of how Wall Street is doing right now. Now, I got to tell you the truth. I think this may be a win for Joe Biden. To have this guy who is emblematic of income inequality and the folks that are all rabidly for Donald Trump, the people they should hate. I mean, I'll never forget. This is a true story. I was invited to have lunch with Steve Schwartzman in his private dining room. I mean, this was the most opulent little office dining room, Persian rugs, the finest china. And then this guy actually had the nerve to have a nicer dessert than I did. They brought him in like really nice berries, and I had some like old ugly piece of cantaloupe, and he had this big bowl of berries. You know, and I just come off the campaign trail where I had been all through rural Missouri, where people were dying for health care and trying to get internet. And this guy had the nerve to serve himself this opulent dessert while I was sitting across, like, you know, having graham crackers. So this is not a guy who's in touch with America. This is a guy who is emblematic of everything Donald Trump's supporters hate. And this is
he doesn't have to worry about anything.
Right, exactly. This is where Joe Biden can break through. If Steve Schwartzman is for your guy, he is not for people who take a shower after work. End of discussion.
Well,
right.
Yeah. You know, I don't even know what to say.
I don't know what
about
to say either. What was he doing with that dessert?
Dessertgate there. But Andrew Sorkin, you know what's so fascinating is we always talk about the threat to democracy. But I would think that somebody on Wall Street would understand the threat to American capitalism. The fact that Donald Trump wants to bring all the power into the White House. He wants to pick the winners. He wants to pick the losers. He wants to decide what CEOs are guilty of treason. He said it. He wants to decide what CEOs who cozy up to him. I mean, they are literally choosing a guy who wants to do what Orban has done to Hungary, and he has said that Orban is a
Joe. You're making the point. You're making the point for Steve Schwartzman, which is that there's a group of people on Wall Street that are very happy to cozy up to him in hopes. Now, this is the question: is whether he'll turn on you later, but in hopes that if you befriend him now, he's going to somehow help you later. You know, Steve Schwartzman and others, they spent a lot of time in the White House last time. And so they want to spend a lot of time in the White House again. And they're hoping that they're going to have his ear by getting in at this point and saying, we're with you. I mean, even look at Nikki Haley. We talked about that all last week. What do you think that's about?
I'm telling you,
know what it's about.
I don't understand the stupidity. Everybody knows. Yeah. He likes you. He helps you. He'll do you a favor, Steve Schwartzman, until he won't. Like, what What's going through Steve Schwartzman's head? Does he really think he's going to just totally have Donald Trump in his pocket?
And I've known Steve Schwartzman
Donald
a very
Trump
long
will
time.
Turn on people.
I don't think Steve Schwartzman's a bad person. I think he's a very philanthropic person. I think he's had a huge career in business. No. And all I was going to say is, I think he is somebody who looks at this. He's a lifelong Republican. I think he was hoping. I do genuinely think he was hoping that there would be another candidate that would emerge. That candidate has not emerged, and I think he's looking at his choices. And given the way he thinks about the world, this is where he lands. So.